You are live, Chair.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the South East Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday, the 13th of November 2020. My name is Councillor Vanessa Burr, and I'm the Chairperson of this meeting. Members and members of the public, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording. By being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to the recording. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Please note that the live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of microphones. We have put the microphone in the middle of the room this evening because the sound here can be a bit full sometimes. So please speak up when you are speaking. It's really important for the recording. Also, please reference a page and paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions clear and concise as possible. Item 2, apologies for absence. May I have the apologies for absence, please, Mr. Clark?
Yes, Chair. We've received apologies for absence from Councillor Bound and Councillor Mayland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 3 is the minutes. So it's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of October, found on pages 7 to 14, are approved as the true and accurate report. I so moved. Do I have a second that? Councillor Neil, thank you. Members, can we agree those by saying?
We agree.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 4 is declarations of interest. So to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct of Members. Any declarations, members? No, and if any come up throughout the meeting, please give the section. So we will move on to item 5, 00017, FULM. Glebe Meadow, adjacent to King George's Field, Station Road, Southminster, and this can be found on pages 15 and 50 of your chamber. There is no members' update in relation to this application, so I'm going to go straight over to this page to present the report. Thank you, when you're ready. Not time.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, members. This is the full application, reference 24/00017 FULM, and it's an application for 36 dwellings with associated landscaping, roads and parking, drainage infrastructure, public open space, and adoption of a footway to Vicarage Court. And it's relating to land at Glebe Meadow, adjacent to King George's Field, Station Road, and Southminster. Bear with me. Here is the location plan. You can see it's outlined in red. It includes the main rectangular development parcel and the proposed path works to Vicarage Court, which is the sort of more squiggly line you can see there. The site is located within a relatively central position within Southminster. It lies to the south of the B1018. To the north of the site is the public swimming pool and school, the fields. To the east is the football club. To the south is an area of woodland, we can see there on the area photograph, and the lakes associated with Over Lakes fisheries. While to the west, we've got residential development within Vicarage Meadow and Vicarage Court. Here. The site is within walking distance of the services and facilities within Southminster and is within very close proximity to the bus stops on Burnham Road along here. And we can see the railway station there to the east, and again, consider this is walkable, and therefore the site scores highly in terms of sustainability. We've included a density plan here, so this shows the density of the proposed site in relation to the neighbouring developments. So our site is considering tonight the one in red. So the proposed scheme for 36 unit results in a density of 25.7 dwellings per hectare, and that's just really helpful just to compare that in terms of how it relates to Vicarage Court and Vicarage Meadow. So Vicarage Meadow has a density of around 26.8 dwellings per hectare. So we start see development site is actually slightly lower in density than Vicarage Meadows, but obviously higher than the very low density of Vicarage Court. Officers have also just added a note here in terms of the history. So there is a previous application that no longer is extant for 13 dwellings at the site, and that would have resulted in a scheme of around 12 dwellings per hectare. Members would be aware that the MPPF promotes effective use of land and meeting the needs for homes and other uses, and therefore the development 36 actually would be reported with the MPPF in that regard. Officers consider that the density is appropriate and would not result in an overdevelopment of the sites. Turning to the proposed site plan and siting of affordable housing, access into the site is via the northwestern corner, so up here, which we'll see later in the photographs. The dwellings along based onto this new access road, so that will follow the same development pattern as the existing properties in Vicarage Court. We can see then that dwellings are set back, street trees are incorporated to this northern side of the verge, and then the road splits into a junction. So you've then got this eastern parcel where it's a slightly higher density, and we'll see that on some of the street scenes shortly, and then extends south. So the southern, more central access road there is of a different character and reflects really the character, similar characters to Vicarage Court. Dwellings facing south onto the open space. And throughout the development, the layout ensures active frontages are maintained along the highway and the public open space to ensure natural surveillance is achieved. In terms of parking across the site, it's a mix of on-plot parking within driveways and garages and via small parking courts. The visitor spaces are well distributed throughout the site. On the right-hand side here, we can see the affordable housing, so it's within two parcels, really within this northeastern corner. It equates to 11 affordable housing, which is 30.6%. Is therefore policy compliant in that regard, and the distribution is considered to be acceptable, and the dwellings are designed to be penny blind. So turning to just a selection of the house type plans now, this is one of the 4-bed units. So in fact, this is the 4-bed corner unit. So you can see the coloured front elevation and the entrance there, but also on this flank elevation, which would be turning the corner, you've got the bay window, the changing of materials, and the additional fenestration to add interest. General design terms, the approach to the detailed design of these dwellings does reflect that in the locality in terms of the architectural features. So we will see on some of the slides I'll share shortly. We've got front gables, bay windows, the use of stone seals and chimneys, and the choice of materials, which include red and buff brick and render to the walls, and roofing materials as terracotta and brown tiles with a slate tile effect is also in keeping what the dwellings are in the locality. So here, another one of the 4-bed house type. You can see a different approach to that projecting gable and those complementary materials. This is one of the 3-bed units, again, use of stone seals in the chimney. Here's an example of some 2-bed units. So these are some of the affordable units on site. But again, officers consider their tenure blind in terms of the design features, use of the stone seals, etc. Still appear high quality. Again, another example here of some of the 2-bed units. So again, some of the affordable, but again, matching materials and the use of the chimneys to sort of add interest and quality to the scheme. And here is the 1-bed unit, so affordable again, but again, just to show you sort of how the design fits in with the rest of the scheme. So going to some street scenes now, you've got A and B, so these are the street scenes as we're looking at that northern access into the site. So the development would be entirely 2-storey in scale, and this would reflect that it would be built out within the locality. This street scene here, so A, this will be standing within the new access road looking north, demonstrates really the spacing that would occur between the dwellings. Officers consider that this wouldn't appear cramped or congested and has a sort of a pleasing width into the street scene. As you're looking south from the main access road, this is where the density is slightly higher, so where my cursor is now, in that corner, so this is the terrace road, the only terrace is some of the affordable units, as are these, but again, although they're slightly closer together, they're in a slightly different character area, we do not feel that is harmful. Street C and C and D now. So C is the central access road in. You can see again the spacing between the dwellings, that mix of materials that add to the quality of the scheme. And D, street scene at the bottom, is how the development would appear from the open space of the site. Again, on here you can see the turning corner unit, so you can see how they work really in the street scene and how they add interest, as you turn the corner. You can also see here, and I'll share it on a later slide, the use of brick walls in the public realm. So where dwellings front onto the open space or parking courts, brick walls are proposed. So here is the boundary plans. The dark red is where brick walls are proposed. So you can see here where you've got gardens fronting onto sort of access or highways, parking court areas or the open space, you would have a high quality brick wall for natural surveillance and sort of adding to the visual amenity of the site. That is the landscape plan here, and I appreciate it's somewhat difficult to read, but just gives a bit of a flavour in terms of what the strategy is for soft marking across the site. You can see that a number of street trees are proposed, so you should expect them to appear around the perimeter of the access. In addition, there's uniformity in the hedgerow, so you can see the hedgerow here, that's reflected here, so you would have a uniformity in the approach throughout the site. Again, that includes the approach around the affordable housing, so that adds to the tenant-blind nature of the application. Officers are content with the landscaping approach, which also seeks to add to the biodiversity net gain of the development. In terms of the footpath proposed, as we saw in the red line earlier, a 1.8 metre wide footpath is requested by the Highway Authority in order for the development to be made safe and to prevent conflict between pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles. So as you can see here, this would run alongside the existing carriageway and would join down to the south here on the existing footway at the entrance of Vicarage Court. There is a small parcel of land where the ownership is not known, and that's the area there shown in yellow. And this will be constructed and adopted using section 228 of the Highway Act. So for this area, certificate D has been completed on the application form and appropriate notice is served. So just a few side photographs here. This one on the left-hand side is a photograph taken within Vicarage Court. So as you're turning around the corner at the northern end sort of into the site, so almost here. So this would be the access as you're going from Vicarage Court into the development site here. So here is where new accesses will be taken, and the development dwellings would lie either side to follow this existing development. Left-hand side, we've got a view of the existing western boundaries. So again, you can just see the existing dwelling here in Vicarage Court and the western boundary. And again, the one on the right-hand side is looking towards the access. So these two existing dwellings within Vicarage Court. And then on the right-hand side of the image, you've got a northern landscape boundary. And so the left-hand side photograph here is taken from the access looking in the southern direction. So the western boundary now is on the right-hand side of the photo. And on the right-hand picture here is just an image of that northern boundary. So the left-hand photo here is just now looking towards the eastern boundary. So there are some existing trees to be retained along that boundary. And again, this photo here just demonstrates the quality of those trees, very much on the boundary. This photograph is taken actually from within the football club land, so looking across now at the development site. In terms of the summary, the site is located outside of the settlement boundary. It's not therefore important for the development plan. The development would deliver 36 dwellings in a sustainable location within Southminster. There is conflict with the local housing needs assessment with the 25 market units, and this is in regards to the delivery of the larger dwellings. Officers consider that the layout would be high quality and reflect the grain of development in the area and the detailed design. Street trees are incorporated together with a high quality soft landscaping scheme, and the open space would be well located to deliver a new soft edge to the village. The development would provide high quality amenity for future occupiers, and officers consider there will be no unacceptable impact to neighbours' amenity. subject to some conditions relating to construction management plan primarily. The Highway Authority has no objections subject to conditions, including the provision of that off-site footpath within Vicarage Court. Foot vehicle and cycle parking will be provided. And matters in relation to ecology and flood risk are acceptable. And a legal agreement would secure affordable housing and a financial contribution towards healthcare, education, libraries and RAMs. In terms of looking at that planning balance, in terms of the adverse impact, officers consider that the adverse impacts relate to the conflict with the development plan, with the site lying outside the settlement boundary. In terms of the public benefits, this would relate to the delivery of market and affordable housing. So there is some conflict, as I said, with the local housing needs assessment for the 25 market dwellings, and that would reduce in a positive way assigned to market delivery. But the development would deliver 11 affordable housing units, to which significant weight is assigned. The site is locationally sustainable, to which moderate weight is assigned, and social and economic benefits would arise. In addition, environmental benefits would arise with biodiversity net gain. So in conclusion, having considered the benefits that would arise from the proposal and weighing this against the harm, it is considered that significant benefits of the development would outweigh any harm. These benefits would amount to material considerations that could indicate that plan permission could be granted not in accordance with the development plan, and our recommendation this evening is that plan permission be granted, subject to securing the necessary obligations and the imposition of conditions that we have before. And that's it on the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Page. So we do have public participation. So if I can call the agents, Dunstan, Mr. Dunstan.
Good evening.
I was online.
You can hear.
Yeah, just a minute while we've got the presentation down, so then hopefully we'll be able to see.
Not too closely.
There we go. Just give me
Oh,
a
do I need to know that?
please. There you go. Brilliant. Welcome. I don't know if you can see the timer.
No, I can't see a time.
Right.
You'll hear it.
You'll hear it. So, when you're ready, just start. We'll have 2 minutes, Mr. Dunstan. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I will start now. On behalf of the applicant, thank you for the opportunity to address the planning committee this evening. We have worked hard with the authorities supply services to make a small population of reptiles on the site be stopped from their initial proposal of keeping them on site, giving them a new home in Mayland that offers a much better habitat for levels 5. The ecologists have also played an important role in exceeding the minimum requirements for biodiversity net gain, meaning the construction of the new homes will increase the value of the land for wildlife. The Essex County Highways have also worked with us to address the need for our safe site access, resulting in changes to the application that added footway to the east side of Vicarage Court, so pedestrians and traffic are segregated, even though the geometry of the existing site means that vehicle needs are very slow. The District Council Housing Team provided advice that there could be accommodation for more larger houses written than normally being delivered, helping meeting local housing need, but also balancing out the choice to focus on 4 or 5 bedroom houses for sale on the end of the market. The big houses don't quite align with the district's target mix, but they are in keeping the low density character of Vicarage, Meadow and Vicarage Court, respecting the ground development on the south east side of Southminster, a positive relationship with the existing houses to the west side. Care has also been taken to reflect the existing housing using matching materials and details such as bay windows, chimneys and landscaping. To conclude, the application presented to you this evening, a collaboration with the council and council teams, delivering benefits that significantly outweigh the harm building outside the settlement boundary. As such, I trust that you will concur with the council's recommendation involved from planning commission this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dunstan. Well, within time. So
Excellent.
thank you very much. So now I move to, there we go. You have an objector, Ms. Saunders? Yes. If you'd like to just go over there, so. Hopefully the microphone will pick you up. Okay. So same thing, so when you start, we'll start the timer and you have 2 minutes, so over to you.
Major development application does not accord with the provisions of the LDP in force and is contrary to policies S1, S1 Part 12, S8, H4, H412, 47, D1, D1ABD, D14, D18. Northern District Council control a robust 6.35-year housing land supply. Therefore, developments outside settlement boundaries are not needed. Please note that there were 439 public objections, none in support and only 67 were covered up in the officer's report. 5.1.9. The site is located outside of the defined settlement boundary and planning permission will only be granted for certain development, which does not include this development type proposed. 5.1.11 states, however, a material consideration should be considered. This should not, as 36 dwellings is not 13. The Inspector on Appeal states, because of the low density and subsequent generous areas of open space and landscaping provided, would not cause considerable harm. However, with a significant increase to 36 dwellings, this can no longer be considered to be the case. There was no highway consultation response or visits on the first application. The agent stated the site entrance, Vicarage Court and Vicarage Meadows are all 5.5 wide in the first application, appeal and current application. These measurements are all incorrect and misleading. The transport statement which supports the NPPF is flawed with many inaccuracies and therefore should not have been passed in the first place and been refused. The developer does not have full control for a continuous footpath to satisfy conditions set out by highways. As Mr Williams owns areas of the land that are excluded from the land purchase and there's evidence to prove this. The development plans to remove the block pavers, then tarmac the road, removing mature shrubs, hedges and trees, seeking a complete change and loss of character and identity to Vicarage Court, then block pave the new development. Instead of living on the other side, live in the middle of the house.
Thank you very much. Great.
It's in 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, Councillor Harold, finally, it's your go, so we've got the time back whenever you're ready.
Well, I read from the original response that Southminster Council gave a lot of what the young lady just said. If I just pick up on the various points, it was on appeal that the planning process and the highway authority did not realise the site entrance was restricted to 5.2 metres and the Vicarage Court was at its narrowest point less than 1.4 metres wide. It would be impossible for 2 vehicles to pass each other at the entrance to the site, and due to the narrowness of the entrance, there would be risk of pedestrians and other road users. It should be noted that from a highway perspective, Vicarage Court is at best grade G and at worst grade H. It would therefore be in accordance with the highway standards inappropriate to route the traffic from the proposed development over and through Vicarage Court. It should be noted that part of the application is outlined in red, which includes land at Vicarage Court, which is not in the applicant's ownership or under their control. Whilst the council accepts this may be a civil matter, documents have been tabled to the council to support this statement. The builders of Vicarage Court, Burwood Homes Limited, have also confirmed that this statement is correct. It is not clear that the construction of the would safely use essentials and how future occupiers, particularly pedestrians, will be able to safely navigate Vicarage Court. In any event, occupiers of Vicarage Court and Vicarage Meadows would suffer from the community due to the impact of air, light, and noise pollution. Finishing, then, on the basis of the information we have received from the application of the country to policies S1, S1 Part 12, S8, D1 and I1 infrastructure and services, cover Mayland District Council Development Plan 2014 to 2029 and S12 and NPPF, would therefore be refused.
Perfect. Councillor Harold, you've done this before. Just for the benefit of the recording, if it was difficult to pick Mr panel up. Mainly the issues around access, widths and sizes and so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just going to ask the officers if you want to add anything before I throw the floor open to members.
There's anything immediate or to back with this section?
Nothing. Right.
Members, the floor is yours. Yes, that's that.
Can I just ask two little questions first and then listen to the debate and then because I want to leave on to the board members. I just wanted to go to page 43, proposed conditions. It says the development hereby permitted shall be done before the expiry date of 3 years and the date of the permission. How does that sit along with the extent planning permission of the original application? You put a condition down here tonight that wasn't adhered to before. So how are you saying that we can apply this condition when it's failed? And the second one that I'd like to just have confirmation on is how you record your weight. I've added up what it says, and you've got limited weight 1, significant weight 1, moderate weight 3, but yet on your conclusion it says significant benefit. So I just really wanted to know how you've got a limited, a significant, and 3 moderates that compile to make a significant benefit. I think it's important for people to understand it. I don't understand it, and you know. So if I can have those questions, thank you for allowing me to speak before you, ward members.
Thank you. Yeah, just to come back in terms of the time limit. So the first time we proposed that workshop we had to do in 3 years, within 3 years. There isn't an extant permission on the site, so the outline and reserve matters that they had, as I understand, was not implemented, and therefore it's not extant. So imposing a 3-year time limit, if they didn't commence within 3 years, the application lapsed.
All right, so it's gone.
Yes.
So, but you're saying there's a principle of development there, even though it's gone, but it's a different size development. I think that's a different debate. I'll come back at that later. So the benefits.
And then in terms of, yes, planning balance, sort of the way planners would apply weight is within those terms, so limited, moderate, significant. So it's obviously that's how we've attributed the weight to be applied to those particular issues, and therefore it's in the round, isn't it? So in the round we consider that those benefits, the moderate, the significant, do result in enough to tip the balance to outweigh the harms.
Okay.
I think I'm not going to try and see what you're asking, Councillor Stamp, but I think
I know.
for me, it's where the bar, is that what you're asking? Is
It's quite
where
clear,
is this bar?
Yeah, because
So,
it is listed in the.
How many moderates and limiteds do we need to make a yes? I think is that a question?
Yes, how do you judge it? Because it's you're just saying that how you assess it, and I would most probably look at this and say I don't agree with that because you put in 36 houses. I think it's not a moderate weight. I think it goes against everything. So that's why I want to judge what you're going to say to what I'm going to say later. I'll wait.
I think one thing I'd say about the standing time condition, you asked about the 3 years, that's automatically on person all planning permissions, and if it's not stated, it is implied.
Oh, it's not stated, it's implied.
No, if you don't state the 3 years, it's automatically implied that all planning permissions have a life of 3 years.
Thank you, members, all members. I'm sure you've got plenty to say.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
And do please speak up, Councillor Baker.
I get terrorised on social media. Chairman, first of all, before I talk to the report in general, page 15 of the officer's report this evening, which shows the landscape plan. I mean, if we look at the eastern boundary, which is sort of made up of black lines and no black lines, and trees and no black lines. I'm not sure if the officer is aware. I mean, I presume you went to not only this site, but the adjacent site, which I think you referred to as Southminster United Football Club. It's actually King George V playing field, which is an open space for the benefit of all of residents of Southminster. And unfortunately, like many of these spaces, it's subjected to quite a lot of vandalism, often because people can get onto the site where they shouldn't. So if members were minded to grievous application. I would propose that we have a condition whereby the developer in perpetuity provides a fence on the eastern boundary. Now, I think from the point of view of security and safeguard, I think that would be right and proper. And I think the officer also talks about the public swimming pool at Southminster. There isn't one. It's the sportsman level. So I know you're talking about sustainability, and I think also you reference the location of the railway station in relation to your plan. Of course, there is no access from the site to the railway station. One would have to go along Vicarage Court, into Vicarage Meadow, and then into the Burnham Road, and then down Station Road. And rather than being 0.6 of a mile away, I think it's about 1.5 miles, which would mean, I suspect, that people would be reliant on cars to go there, particularly during bad weather. But I'll move on swiftly. Now, in the report, the officer does tend to give weight to the appeal that was determined on the 14th of June. I'm personally disappointed that even though that is extant, we didn't actually have a map contained in the report showing what that applied to, because the inspector was quite clear, and I read the appeal today, and he spoke to supporting it on grounds that there was only 13 dwellings, it was on the edge of the settlement boundary, or it was outside the settlement boundary, but because it had such large buffer strips and provided large areas of amenity space, said that that was acceptable. Councillor Stamps already mentioned the matters of highways which were considered in that appeal. I spoke to the planning inspectorate months ago about this, and they agreed that for whatever reason we didn't get the full information back from highways, and it certainly wasn't known. But so, Chairman, I turned to paragraph 3.2.5 and would challenge the officer's comments that there would be no unacceptable impact to neighbouring properties, as the amenity of the occupiers of the two properties, 5 and 6 Vicarage Court, perhaps should be kind enough to put the slide up that shows those two properties nearest to the site entrance. They'd be impacted by the proposed. We just get that up. So you can. 17, I'm told, my man is prompting me, page 17 of your report. So looking down where the dustbins are on the right hand side, so that's the properties 5 and 6. I mean, immediately next to them, maybe I've got the numbers wrong, but I think which ones I'm talking about, but immediately next to those is parking courts. I mean, if one looks at the plan for this development, there's parking courts and garages there. So those properties are going to suffer noise and the disruption of people parking cars all hours during the day. And there's also an issue with the construction period. I mean, that is a very, very narrow entrance. I've measured it many times because the residents have asked me to measure it. We know how wide it is. We know there's a land dispute. But certainly with regards to the amenity of existing properties, I would challenge 3.2.5 and say that actually there is an impact. So moving on to paragraph 3.2.6, the Highways Authority, they're only not objecting on the basis that the provision of an off-site footpath. So we've got this off-site footpath, but there's a huge dispute over who actually owns the land, where this proposed footpath is supposed to go. In fact, I believe there's a gentleman in the chamber here this evening who has deeds to prove that part of this footpath he owns, it's part of his garden, and he is not going to give it up. So I appreciate that's a civil issue. Nevertheless, I think it gives good weight to what's going on with this. And the other thing is, we've got this situation whereby if this footpath was going to go ahead, then it would be less than a metre away from some garage doors. So this is the existing houses in Vicarage Court. And really and truly, this to me sounds quite at odds with what we're trying to achieve. So people won't be able to open their doors. So I'll move on now to some other matters apart from highways. I mean, regardless of what Essex County Council may say, there is no room for expansion in the local primary school cluster. I've spoken to the teachers regularly. There is no room. So that would mean children at school age would likely have to be sent to schools outside of the area, which is not considered sustainably or socially acceptable for children if they've got to go outside of the area. And again, just speaking to 5.31, the distance is shown in your report, roundly speaking, correct. But again, the medical centre is maxed out. You know, nobody can get an appointment at Southminster Medical Centre. I know the NHS apply their algorithm, take the dollar and say to the local surgeries, get on with it. But it's no good saying it's up the road because the National Health Service has actually agreed to build a new surgery 2.8 miles away, which means William officially will be closing. So it's less sustainable. Whatever. And I'll just turn to 5.4, the layout and design. Vicarage Court comprises of some of the largest quad fronted, which is very unusual, 3-storey houses in the district. It's quite an unusual development. The proposed dwellings closest to those in Vicarage Court, so I get that to 5 and 6 at the entrance, and you've still got the sign up there. I mean, to the left-hand side, as you go through, there's a rather nice turn court. The first thing you see as you leave it is a pair of semi-detached houses, which look completely at odds with where you are. So I think the principles of design of this seem to be at odds with what we're trying to achieve. In my mind, it would have been better to taper this in. And I mean, everybody knows that I love renderings, but if we look at one of the house types in particular, which you'll find on page 12, in the top left-hand corner, then it looks like a very nice house, detached house with a tree outside, but when we count the doors, it's actually a pair of semis. Yeah, and it's just, you know, as you go through, to me, that does not look like good design to me, and it's certainly contrary to policy D1 as a whole. I mean, the highways issues, we've spoken about that, but it is critical. This entrance, I mean, it is round about 5 metres. The brick-built piers were there 23 years ago. They're built from the same bricks as the houses. There's a dispute over land ownership. I understand that has never come up before in the 23 years. It is a civil matter. But I think it's also very, very interesting. I'm sure the officers are aware of this, but if you were to look at the original planning application for Vicarage Court, you will see that all of those walls, hedges, trees, lampposts, and other street furniture was all covered in the planning application, and actually formed a rather big argument about granting permission, according to Bible developments. And having spoken to somebody who sat on the committee, then they agreed with me. And so that was all part of it. And now the proposal is to remove all of the stuff that's got planning permission. And I think if you look at, if we could just have the slide up, which shows Vicarage Court, I think it's on page 17. I mean, all those hedges are going. Well, most of those hedges are being dug up, taken away. And you've got this brick paved area, which was only designed for 20 ton traffic. So, but they're highways matters, and I've already said that, as I say, all of the walls and gardens and street furniture are all subject to planning permission. So this is all rather odd. And I'll just brief.
Just stop you there, because I'm deeply concerned the idea of removing public residence hedges.
Well,
I just need clarification on this from officers, because I don't think we can be going digging up people's hedges.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I may not explain myself.
No, I think you are explaining yourself. I'm just concerned.
The idea is to create this footpath to satisfy the highway first. The only way you can do it is to take out the hedges, remove the lampposts, and that's it, and take everybody's front gardens. And we've got people, and I can hear them behind me, but you know, you can see how established those hedges are, and they formed part of planning application. They were actually shown on the planning application, and all of those were within the site. And we've had with Mr. Cotton address the parish council about all of this. It all seems rather odd. So anyway, Chairman, look, I'll briefly turn to the most recent planning appeal, which the council dealt with, which which was 23000441, Mr. Story stated in that particular one, that particular appeal, and I know they're all different and they should be taken on their own merits, but this was a rather overarching and global comment in relation to where we are now with the local plan and the 5-year housing supply. And he says no compelling evidence to suggest the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, which we can. We know that the existing application is extant, yeah, and it's a completely different. Let's not kid ourselves. The previous application is completely different. And he also goes on to say, I'm not persuaded to reach a decision other than in accordance with the current development. So there you have it. This is Mr. Story on behalf of PINS. So he's saying that, look, you know, whatever, we know this is outside of development boundary. We know it's close to development boundary. We know there's issues with, in my mind, with design, which is contrary to D1 in my mind. I don't think this is good design. And we know in the background we've got this huge civil matter of who owns what in the road, but we are talking about removing hedges and everything else. And if you can't remove the hedges, then you can't provide a footpath, so you can't grant planning permission. I mean, that's down the road, because we Essex Highways, in their wisdom, have actually said, look, we've got no objections as long as you sort out this footpath. So, Chairman, I propose that members should try and leave the issues of land ownership and highways to us and focus on the policies of D1 and SA of the local development plan. And on that basis, and contrary to the officer's recommendation, we refuse this application. And Chairman, on top of that, I would say that should the applicant in this matter, I think choose not to formally resolve the issues of land ownership and deal with the policies of D1, or at least the concerns I've raised with regards to D1 and SAs, and proceed to appeal and a public inquiry, then, you know, I'm quite happy to confirm, Chairman, that I'm happy to address the inspector as the warden.
That's a proposal.
That is, well, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, do we have a second? Councillor Brown. Thank you, Councillor Fluker. Councillor Pratt, is there anything you members?
I think Councillor Fluker has covered everything. I would just like to emphasise the fact that outside the development, the design does not fit the existing. We've mentioned suddenly putting 100-ish cars through a little tiny gap, including carts and delivery. Amazon comes to me 3 times a week, so multiply that. I just think, had this application come when Vicarage Court was being designed, we would have said, what a dreadful design, you can't funnel all this amount of work through that little opening. It would have been refused 20 years ago. I think the 12/13 on the edge of the village as a buffer is a very good point. And so often we see it. Here is a small plot of land. Yes, we could fit half a dozen to 1,000 houses on it. Let's give it a go and see whether we can get 40 houses on it, is what the developer normally does. And here is yet another example, too much in too small a space. So I really struggle to see the officers' weight showing me the benefit of putting all these houses in such a small parcel of land. I tend to lean the other way to say I think there is more harm than there is good. Yes, we need a few houses. Yes, we need some social housing. Great. But really, at what cost? I think I'm happy to second Councillor Fluker's suggestion that we turn this down.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Fluker wholeheartedly in his motion.
You are there, Councillor Fluker. You should have read momentarily.
I mean, I tend to start from a different position on these applications. I start from paragraph 12 of the MPBS. And basically what it says is where that planning application fits with an up-to-date development permission should not normally be granted. So then I'm trying to consider whether or not this application outweighs what I would regard as substantial harm. departure from the plan. It seems to me the thrust of it is if we get over the conflict between SA and D1, in terms of the planning balance by officers, it very much is dependent upon the housing mix, affordable housing. Now, I looked at, I referred to 5.1.4.2 there, and in this it asserts that it's considerable, it implies it's considerable over delivery of larger properties for 20 houses. Well, there's not an increase, there's one property. I mean, I've added it up and you could look at it, if the assessment is basically 30,000, 30K. So if I did like, whatever combination I come up to 17 bedrooms. This comes up to 17 bedrooms. So I would say that that's been over, personally I believe that's been overstated. Now, when I look at the actual market housing mix, I mean, we have to understand that the local housing need assessment isn't just dominated by the need to build affordable housing or social housing. There's also a requirement to build market housing. And I'm conscious of the fact that we have a new government. And our new government has seen fit to throw the gauntlet down to councils. We say, look, those councils that have got affordability rates very low, we're going to make you build a lot more houses. So basically what's happened to our district, we have a housing target that's set at a new level of 239. And then because of the price of your housing district, we're going to make you build another 305 per year. So we've got 137% up to build market housing affordable. That's got nothing to do with social housing. That is purely because of affordability ratios. So look at that, they have level housing needs of the mix. And the officers collectively concluded that the balance is okay. I'd just like to ask for you, Chair, based upon what evidence? I mean, can they give me an indication of how much consent we've got for 4 and 3 bedroom property in this over the next 1 to 10 years?
I mean, obviously, I take your point about the housing needs assessment, but at the moment that is being reviewed because it is about 4 years out of date. That is one of the.
Yes, Chair. I mean, I have the answer to that question. 70% of our housing consented to already is 3 and 4 bedroom housing. Last year it was reported that we had an affordability rate for new builds, full price in Essex, £455,000. If we were to translate that affordability ratio, that was 16 times median income. We then have a housing target of 672 per year. So the point of the matter is, we have a local housing need assessment. That is our evidence. We should be actually applying our local housing need assessment for market housing as well as affordable housing. I've been tracking the consent granted. This would equal 84% 3 and 4 bedroom houses, 58% of 4 bedroom. The last consent we consented to was 84% 3 and 4 bedroom houses. The one before that was 79% 3 and 4 bedroom houses. Okay, so I cannot see that a development with a mix that goes so far outside of our actual identified needs, which is 15% of 4 bedroom houses and downwards. How are we meeting the needs of residents when we're building houses they can't possibly even contemplate affording? In our district, we need to be building small, not large. So I can understand how probably it's good for the developer, they're going to make a load of money. But in terms of the evidence that we've got, I don't understand. And the evidence is part of policy page 2. So it seems to me we're cherry picking the bits we like. We want to build more affordable houses, but we'll make market houses so affordable that none of us can afford it. So on that basis, I wouldn't regard the benefit as outweighing harm. I think building the wrong type of house is more harm than building some house. So I would wholeheartedly support the recommendation to the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Britton. Any other hand raised? Yes, that's an order.
Thank you. The only good thing about this is the affordable housing, but however part of the department stated, I have to say that the showing system is that we are actually building our affordable housing by encouraging builders and people to
they want to make money out of it, build so many, and they do as little as they can towards doing that. So I'm quite unhappy about the fact that the affordable housing is oh well, we give you a little bit if you can make a lot of money. So I totally agree with what the speakers have spoken before. I think that it's unfair to put into the situation the fact that they're making people all around that their plot uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, and they haven't actually considered that. And I thought that we were supposed to be very considerate of everybody when we're in a situation of putting houses in a town. So I totally agree with all the comments that have come through. Thank you very much for those comments, because I think that this needs to be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good one. Councillor Stack.
Can I just ask, I remember, and that's a long time ago, I think it was said that the original application was classed as, or it was approved because it was effective use of land. And then the second one said it wasn't effective use of land, it's not non-compliant with the FULM. I got that mixed up the wrong way. So the first application for 12, obviously it's approved, yeah? So to me, whoever approved it said, that's fine, you can put 12 on that site, and it's fine, it's an effective use of land. Now we're coming back with what the officer said, and the officer said we can put 36, and it's effective use of land according to the NPPF. So was the first application an effective use of land, and this one's not, or the first one's not, and this one is? It seems to me, sorry, I'm thinking of I'm sorry. It seems to me what Councillor Whittaker says, and we've all had to listen to the reasons for officers to say something should be approved or whatever. It seems as though we're picking whatever policy it wants to get this to be approved. I certainly don't agree with the design, and I would be horrified if I lived up where that photograph is on slide 17, because you're going to, I think it's 98 parking spaces or something. And that can equate to, God, well, it could be 98 cars, couldn't it? How many vehicle movements are going to come past these poor people's houses on a narrow road? And I can't believe, I would totally agree with you, Chair, cutting down that greenery for biodiversity when the original ecology thing, because I read this and thought, well, they've got a holding objection on. And then I read it a bit further, the officer's report, it said no holding objection. So I'm trying to work out why there was a holding objection and why the holding objection's gone. I presume it's because the red-crested newts are going to a beautiful place, Dame Arnie, so they don't like Southminster.
Yeah. Packing their little bags.
Because that's what it sounded like. It really did sound just generous to Southminster.
Where one doesn't go where we want it to go, and Councillor Stack.
I'd like it addressed about the ecology, please. I was being flippant, but I'm serious, and I want it addressed about the effective use of land that now seems to have changed.
Thank you. Yeah, so you're right. So it was an application for 13 units at the site.
Oh, forgive me.
It's a density of 12 dwellings per hectare.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, my mistake.
13 dwellings with an outline consent. So I know you earlier somebody said it would have been helpful to have the layout plan. Obviously, layout was a reserve matter.
Yeah.
But I appreciate what the inspectors did say within allowing that appeals to do with the spacing that could be accommodated across the side with a lower development. I don't think, from when I reread the appeal decision earlier today, I don't think the inspector made any comments about whether or not that was effective or ineffective use of the land. But from my point of view, in terms of looking strictly at the density and how that compares to comparable, I would be saying it was an underused or ineffective use of the land, appreciating that there needs to be regard to what the character and appearance of the land is. So, and then in terms of the ecology, you're right, there has been a holding objection from ecology throughout the length of the application, and there has been a lot of back and forth between the developer and the county ecologist. That was primarily in relation to great crested newts and sort of the translocation of them and sort of finding a place where they could be rehomed, to call it, and in relation to biodiversity and net gain. So the footpath would result or require the removal of existing landscape within Vicarage Court. That removal has been included within the biodiversity net gain calculations, albeit there'll be a visual impact that has concerned raised for this evening. But yes, so the Great Preston work has been done, the BNG biodiversity net gain information has been submitted, and the ecologist is happy with what's been submitted, hence why there's the imposition of those conditions on the within the recommendation.
Okay. Can I just come back? Sorry, like pause there, then you can't speak. Chair, back to that. I mean, I would absolutely be horrified if I lived on that house, have that hedge ripped out, which is beautiful. You've got nesting birds, you've got everything else that lives in there. And then to have a footpath and everybody walking past your windows, looking in, having a good look at what you're having for your dinner or whatever you're actually doing in your house. And I would be absolutely mortified if I feel that is an invasion of my privacy.
More than a loss of community.
So I'm afraid I'm actually going to agree with Councillor Luke, Councillor Bitters and Councillor Pratt and Councillor Norman, and I would recommend refusal. Councillor Luke, briefly.
Well, yeah, very briefly. Sorry, can officers tell the committee what planning permission exists on this site? And to give them a clue why this application isn't for change of use.
Big question?
So, what planning permission exists on this site? Why this application isn't for change of use?
Yeah, so there's no establishment on site.
So
the development of residential would in essence be a change of use of the land.
So would you be surprised to know that planning permission exists for recreational use? And it's never been changed. Website, so doing some research on this. Somebody applied permission to have this as recreation.
Was it granted?
Yeah.
The question would then be, sorry, if I could just be established that the excellent planning permission runs out after 3 years, if it's residential, does it, if it's recreational?
Well, why does recreational expire?
If there was a planning permission granted, it would still expire.
Well, why?
If it wasn't implemented.
Well, it has, because people have been using
So the
recreational
I was going to say recreating, that's not a
Off the top of my head, I think it's the address is right, and I think it's sort of, I can't remember if it was 2005 originally, and then it came forward. I mean, there's someone saying yes, but I think it came forward in 2005, and then there's further reference to it. I think about that would be right. Yeah, 2005, because the report's about 21, 22 years old. So yeah, that's probably about right. So, and I was doing some because I was trying to find out Vicarage Court application. Of course, it's not Vicarage Court; it's land east of Vicarage Meadow. And then you go a stage further, and then you find, and I believe it may well have been, I don't know who applied for it, but I'm not sure if it's relevant, but it's interesting. Nevertheless, the planning permission on that site is for recreation. And it has been used for recreational purposes for donkey's years. So
there is members, bearing in mind everything that has been said, I actually think we need to go for the constitutional point here. Because there's so much we don't know that we need to know.
I'd like to speak against that, and as you know, I'm mightily concerned with constitutional break. I mean, we are basically dealing with subjective matters, not policy. Officers can argue.
There are some policy matters.
No, if I can just finish. So, policy D1 is subjective. So, what is in the beauty of the eyes of officers may not be in the beauty of the eyes of the elected members. And at the end of the day, whether you add weight to it or not, you cannot say that this development is inside the settlement boundary. You can argue and say it's close to it and everything else, but that's it. So, you know, I believe the constitutional break is there for when members don't interpret policy. When you're dealing with subjective policy, you will not change the minds of members, because we're dealing with D1, which is very much subjective about design, and that is not what the constitutional break is for. Now, you know, I've already spoken, you know, I've made it absolutely clear to members that if this was to go to appeal, then I'm going to go to the appeal. And I think it would be good to have a planning inspector look at this, or for the applicant to come back and resubmit, taking into consideration everything that the members have said tonight. I actually think that if we were to apply the constitutional break, this committee would be ultra virus.
We have to do that, don't we? Constitutional break, so I propose we do. Second.
I mean, my understanding of the constitutional break will purely to try to ensure that the reason for refusal we come up with sound. It wouldn't change our minds. I think there might be some benefit of talking with officers. They understand the mood of members, and then we can formulate a reason for refusal.
That's the purpose, because there's no further negotiation with the applicant. It's just to be sure those are the reasons for refusal.
So we would, so just talk me through, so we could refuse it, and then we could do refuse, and then there would be a constitutional break.
No.
We would refuse that, we would do it. It's ignorant.
This is not what this is about. I mean, by the way, when we the planning permission granted in 2005, it's easily found on our own website, and the applicant is actually Southminster Council. You could have had but Jen, I think it's constitutional. So, Jen, you and I know we don't want to go back to Burnham waters. I'll wait to the officers.
I mean, the constitutional way, as far as we just adjourn the meeting, we talk with officers, we come up with about reasons for the refusal.
Well, that's what we do anyway. We normally say, no. If we don't determine it, then we'll be left to the wrong determination.
Okay, members. We can say that we are mindful to refuse, but that we want to go to the constitutional break just to be certain that our reasons for refusal represent.
No, well, I certainly wouldn't know even that.
I thought that was what the constitution
Yeah.
The committee is minded to recuse.
Yeah, so we need to vote. We need to vote on whether we want to do that. We need to vote on whether we want to. So I'm proposing to allow a second
choice. Our constitution says we must.
Well, who's going to? Well, I don't think the committee. I don't.
Madam Chair, Councillor Pratt's right. It came to PG&A and we thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. So that's what we do.
So, can you tell me then? Will you reconvene this meeting? Because I'm not going to have in a month. And then the applicant he will then appeal for non-determination. And this is why I think yes, of course they can do that. We're out of time. We're out of time. We've not.
That was raised at the PGA and at
the
council meeting. What happened about non-determination? And I think obviously said we would rather have the risk of non-determination in order to get our ducks in a row.
So now my understanding is if this comes back next time, then the debate is only between officers and members. No other members of the public or anybody else.
And it would be the same members of this committee.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
But also, I mean,
is the deferral by another name.
But how many times, Chair? This is why the council got themselves in a real muddle over this. How many times has this committee, and you'll remember Burnham Waters, where we made a decision, the decision was made, the decision was executed, and then this has said that they couldn't defend the matter on appeal. And all we did was bring it back for the officers to say they couldn't defend on appeal and give it the reasons why. In that particular circumstances, members didn't listen to the officer.
I believe it's a different issue where we go to the constitutional break, just us and the officers to get our ducks in line.
Well, I don't want to come into a room whereby the officers are going to change time.
Well, I don't know. That's their.
Well, anyway, this is not anyway. Good. I'm glad Councillor Stat said no, I can change my mind.
Let's move forward.
Let's do it.
I mean, you thought it now.
I just look at the end of the day. I just find it's the most craziest thing. It's a complete and utter waste of time. I don't believe the members are going to change their minds because we're dealing with subjective issues that aren't going to change. Like, you're not going to change the minor amendments.
It's not to do that.
That's not the purpose.
I have a general question. I mean, obviously you've listened to what we've said for you, Chair. I mean, and it seems to me we've got robust reasons for refusal.
Yeah.
So is there any concern with what we're proposing to refuse it on, which would really be policy SAD1 and H2, in terms of a robust reason for refusal? Because they're subjective based upon, as the officer pointed out, we can take a different view on the benefits of the housing mix to officers, and I think that we back by it.
Chairman, can I ask a question? Is it more so that the officers could actually change their minds and see our point of view?
Is that what's about? Getting our ducks in a row and making that's what shows that our three.
It's ensured that there are robust reasons for refusal. Bearing in mind that obviously the applicants were to feel, as would be inevitable, that it's
So in
avoid counting.
would you consider that we have robust policy with which to defend or refuse this?
I consider that there is possibly one reason. Members feel there are others. That is the point of the constitutional break, that we can be sure that we have a robust reason or reasons for refusal.
This is a muddle, because if this was to go to appeal, then all we do is not defend that particular reason. So I just cannot believe how much of the council's resources, the taxpayer money, is going to be expended on this.
Oh, it's this on the constitution.
In your opinion,
That's what we're
would you
saying now.
consider it beneficial for us to go to constitution?
Yes.
Definitely.
Councillor Siddle.
I think we should have a break and talk about it. Because I think, why we are, because we all agree anyway, I don't know, but however, if that's what you think.
Why can't we do that tonight?
Well,
Why
I think the
can't
issue is.
we do it tonight? Yeah, you're right, let's do it now.
No, we can't, because we're not. Constitutional break, because
Constitutional break. It's
Well, we can, we both said,
There is no.
it's policy, there is. I've got to do it.
you've got to do it.
It's that constitution.
is
that what-
When we have to. That's the way it is. The constitution members are going to go to the vote now. Wait, that's Luca's proposal to reject that we go for with first, or is it the one?
I don't even know.
I just want to get members a sense of that we are minded to refuse. Is anyone minded to support it? No, so members are minded to refuse it.
consequences.
So consequentially, constitutional
Constitutional
right.
break is invoked, yes.
So, my last sense, so when will this be dealt with? In 4 weeks' time, or?
And we come back to the next meeting of this committee.
That's what
That's the intention.
the constitution was changed.
Yes. It will be the next meeting of the South East, which I believe is in January.
There's-
There's also the meeting, but obviously the
January?
meeting time is quite tight, the 9th of January.
God,
There's no reason why we can't call it an extraordinary meeting.
there is, the week before Christmas.
Members, I think we have, I'm sorry, apologies, members and members of the public for the confusion on that one. I think, we certainly have a consensus as a committee that we are very concerned. I'm struggling with the concept that anyone could rip up somebody's garden hedge, their front garden, and just have people. I'm just confounded that that could even be possible. But yes, not exactly, I know, but thank you very much, Ms. Bailey, for that. Thank you, members. Now, moving on. We could have Ms. Bailey, please, for agenda item 6. Members, 00586 FUL. Constitution right.
Yes.
I think I did. Well, you want this, that's about it. For the recording, we are going to, are minded to refuse previous application, so we are opening the constitutional break. Thank you. That's about it. Item 6. 00586 FUL, land at Nipsells Farmhouse, Nipsells Chase, Mayland, Essex, CM 360J. You will find this on pages 51 to 64 of your centre pack. Now we go straight over to Ms. Bailey to present. Thank you.
Yes, this application for the construction of a single-storey dwelling.
Sorry, I'm just going to stop you this way. You're being asked who you are, so first I'd like to introduce yourself.
Sorry, I'm the planning officer. Have we gone with this account?
Go on, go on, Jesus. Tell us your name, go on.
Matt Bailey.
Thank you very much, Mr. I'm sure you know me.
You will
You-
be. Well,
Thanks for looking after. Right, back to it. Yes, this is an application for construction of a single dwelling on land at Nipsells Farmhouse, Nipsells Chase. The application, you can use my own people here.
do whatever works.
The application site comprises an area of open grassland to the front of Nipsells Farmhouse, at the northern end of Nipsells Chase. The farmhouse itself is located to the east of the site, with Nipsells Farm Lodge to the north and Nipsells Farm cottages as well. It's separated from 138 Nipsells Chase to the south by substantial hedgerows and the footpath which runs, as you know, from Imperial Avenue to the west over to the northern end of Mill Road. As the settlement boundary plan shows here, the application site is outside of but adjoining the settlement boundary. In this sense, sorry, my screen's gone here. That's fine. We're all right. In this sense, it's contrary to policy S8. However, as you will have read in the committee report, specifically due to the position of the site relative to surrounding residential development on all sides, the scheme is effectively considered to constitute limited infill development. It's also noted that the draft Mayland neighbourhood plan policy May G1 does actually make provision for development that is located within or immediately adjacent to and contiguous to the settlement boundary, which, as you can see in this case, is true. Obviously, it is in draft form, but given the direction of travel, that would therefore trigger an exemption in policy S8 anyway. Anyway, moving on. This is the site plan which shows a substantial separation between the residential properties surrounding it. Nipsells Farmhouse itself is just under 50 metres away to the rear. I think the separation distance to the south and north approximately 18 and 22 respectively. What you can't see on here, but it's notable from the photographs I'll bring you to shortly, is the substantial vegetation that exists around the site, particularly along the southern boundary with the footpath. We'll move on to the photographs of that shortly. In terms of access and parking, the proposal includes provision for 2 vehicular spaces to the front on a crushed concrete driveway. This is considered acceptable in highways terms. Landscaping wise, an area soft margin is retained around all sides of the site with a generous rear garden of approximately 350. On the slide it says 250, but it's actually approximately 350 square metres rear garden. The site will be enclosed by a mixture of hedging selected to match the existing native hedging along the site boundary, which will contribute to the required 10% biodiversity net gain for the site. Dwelling itself is that's a zoomed in site plan. The dwelling itself is quite simple in terms of its architectural design. Sorry, I'll go back with the front building line, which aligns with the residential properties to the south along Nipsells Chase. It will measure 12.8 metres in width, 6.3 metres in depth, and has a eaves height of 2.3 metres, the single story 2.3 metres with a maximum ridge height of 4.2. Fairly standard in terms of its construction. It provides a total footprint, internal footprint of 74 square metres, which complies with national space standards. Materials wise, we're looking at a red stock flint with weatherboarding above and then plate fan tile red roof, UPVC windows, doors and guttering. Fairly standard materials. Just a quick run through in terms of the context of the site. This approaching the site from the south. You can see this is the corner of the site with the entry, the footpath sign here. Footpath crosses the Nipsells chase along this line. Slightly closer view. Looking at the site straight on, this is the portion of the street frontage that you'll see. This is the plot itself. As you can see at the moment, it's just laid grassland. It's proposed to create some hedging around the rear. The hedging here, note, is quite substantial. So the only route that lives of the farmhouse itself is specifically from where this photo is taken. Moving further to the north, this is the view back down the track. And just to clarify the view from the footpath south to the south, here you can see the extensive natural native edging along that southern boundary, which not only effectively conceals the proposal from view from this angle, but also prevents any harm in terms of residential in the south. So in summary, whilst there are some policy conflicts in terms of policy S8, the proposal is found to be acceptable in regard to policies in the plan taken as a whole, the material considerations in terms of the residential surrounding the site, and also the direction of travel of the neighbouring plan. And it's also consistent with the government's drive to boost supply of housing. It considered it acceptable in terms of its design approach and would not cause any harm to the community. Parking and access is acceptable. Note also that a unilateral undertaking securing the requisite contribution has been secured. It's therefore recommended that planning should be granted subject to the conditions set up within the report and the associated unilateral undertaking.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. And we do have public participation on the next one.
Well, maybe I should have been a touch more prepared. Everyone else had none.
No, well, absolutely fine, really fine. So whenever you're ready to sign it, please.
I will.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, just go when you're ready.
Great, obviously, thank you very much for having us here this evening. We've got a disabled daughter who's approaching 16. They've already started to speak to us about caring the community and assisted living. So our plan is to hopefully in the future build her somewhere for her future where we can closely oversee her, but she also has her independence. And that's all there is to it.
Thank you.
That's it.
Very much. Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much for that. Okay. First, if that's all right, I'm a ward member. Actually, I've looked over this application when we did it through parish, and it's yes, it is outside the settlement boundary. But as you were saying about our new neighbourhood plan, where hopefully you can draft, I do actually approve of this setting. I love the farmhouse as it is. It's a great farmhouse. obviously I can see the reason why they don't want it. The house on the front, it's been well thought out. The only thing I say on it is obviously it's the conditions that are imposed on there, and I would like to see that the conditions are upkeep and we don't change the conditions. It's a bungalow, which I think is really nice. To put anything in the roof is something I wouldn't like to see being done in the future, but hopefully that's not going to be the case. Obviously, if it's disabled daughter, I can imagine it's just that we want to keep the bungalow, but yeah, I'm actually in favour of the application.
Thank you very much. Councillor Baker.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think if Councillor Labour, and I'll give way to her because I noticed she calls in. We could be elsewhere now. So, like if Anton de Beck was a member of this committee, he'd start by saying, oh dear, I don't know where to start. But anyway, it's not, so...
No
watching strictly. But look, Chair, I know the area, I know where this is, I know where it sits, no one's complaining about this. I know
To be fair to Councillor Labour on this, because it was outside the local plan that was called in, we would be here anyway.
I've always think it's really, I think it's really important that, you know, we listen to the parish councillors, and in this particular instance, they support the application. You know, they'll know the family probably better than we do. But that's the chain I would propose that we agree the officer's recommendation.
I will second that, and I think members, can we agree that by saying?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So yes, we that's brilliant.
Thank you very much.
So let's think about that one. So thank you for waiting and waiting. Members, before you leave, item 7, any other business that I consider urgent. We've been promised for the final time, say goodbye to Mr. Lawrence. We're retiring for their 385th time.
Oh, bless it.
This time. I just like to thank Mr. Lawrence for all the support he gave us.
Particularly last time. Particularly last time.
Yeah. Thank you. So, on that note, at 2051, I close this meeting.